Okay, for the people joining on YouTube, I'm a League of Legends coach. We do coaching here and League of Legends analysis. We're doing this live on stream as always. So in case you're interested in this sort of content, check out my Twitch link below the video. And let's just start with the review. And of course, if you can, join the stream because that's a lot more fun than watching the video. Because I will try to do as much chat interaction as possible, and I'm always interested in hearing your guys's opinions. Okay, I know I said I will upload every main stage game to YouTube. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do that, but what I can say is I will at the very least do all of those on stream at one point at a time. We're skipping a little bit to do the JDG T1 series right now, mainly due to the reason that it turns out this series is supposedly a banger. Okay, supposedly a very, very good series. So let's just start with that one and then catch up with the other games. And yeah, in case you're watching this on YouTube and there's a series I haven't uploaded to YouTube, check out my Twitch. There's a VOD library there, so check out the streams there, and you can also watch that form of content. It's not like the videos are really edited, are they? Okay, let's start with the band. Okay, JDG starting with Lucian ban. We always see Lucian Nami ban against Gumayusi Keria. Do I think Lucian Nami is overrated? Yes. Gumayusi Keria, probably the best Lucian Nami duo in the entirety of the game, probably also, right? We see Maokai ban. We take away Maokai, which is a very good isolating pick, and able to go like Jace, or even better Tristana in my opinion, right? There's also like a Thunder Flex, because it's also still an AP champion, right? That you can build AP, so you can flex Cassandra with it, which is very, very powerful. We see Rakan ban, which I think is really overrated, but whatever. We see Viban taking out Viari. That is a little bit too loud. Correct decision to watch T1? Correct decision to watch JDG, brother. We cannot be fanboys here. We cannot be fanboys. Zion ban is a bit interesting. I think we've seen T1 pick Zion early in one draft. And it makes sense. I think they went Zion Jinx in one draft, or one or two. And it makes sense for me because if you're new here, right, my opinion on this game is that you can just basically pick top lane currently. I not really care about the lane as long as your top lane is good for the team fight later. I feel like side laning is not as important as long as you have a champion that can fix side lane. They're usually kind of okay. And I don't really believe the top lane is that big of an impact draw, right? So when it came to play-ins, we saw like Lau counterpick Ryze into Kennen, which is like whatever, right? You've got Ryze later against Kennen. Like even if Ryze wins a lane, Kennen will still be 10 times more useful champion in team fights. So mainly maximizing your team fight efficiency for your top lane champion pool is the most important, right? And making sure you've got a top laner that usually works either very well against the enemy composition, like for example Darius could against an all-engaging sort of draft, or very well for your AD carry, because it turns out AD carry is broken, and in 30 points AD carry is made even more broken. Love it, love it, very, very good. Nice, I love Freak. Anyway, Annie's up. Annie's up. Cassandra is up right now. Jinx is up. I wouldn't. Ooh, they actually banned the Yari out as well. Okay, so they respect both, right? So usually what we see is the Ari and like either Ari or Viban just taking it as a combo, which I think can work out quite well. I think I've seen JDG first pick Ari previously. I'm not sure. Or was it T1? Or was it Genji? I've seen one MSI again where Ari was actually first picked. I think it was Genji against T1, right? And then T1 decided to pick the Sandra later. Didn't fully remember. Anyway. Yeah, no, and then T1 did it when it actually didn't work out for them, and then in the end they decided to not do it. Okay. Now let's get back to the draft here. We decided to pick up Annie. Annie is a mid to support flex. JDG really, really, really enjoys skirmishing around mid. From the games I've seen. So Annie can be very good for that. Annie is very easy when it comes to Herald setup. Why? Because this champion, when it comes to Herald fights, is just really broken. Really, really broken. She has CC, she has burst damage, and afterwards she has Tibbers, which in the early levels is really powerful if the fight is prolonged. Especially if people have to come into you because you're usually positioned on Herald, right? So in case middle matchup is bad, you can put it support. Not bad for like a strong bot lane either, right? But mainly we're gonna see it probably with something like Wukong, and just make sure you have a very strong mid jungle to skirmish around Herald. Because usually what we've seen in most games, for me personally, is with either seen like isolating supportive jungle plus carry mid, and then always hyper carry, right? Bot lane is hyper carry anyway, and you've got ruler, so that's pretty much GG when it's hyper carry meta. Or, which I think is better, supportive mid and carry jungle, and then again like hyper carry bot lane. It's always hyper carry. So making sure you secure yourself a strong mid jungle either way, either with supportive mid and carry jungle, or supportive jungle and carry mid, is usually very important. And Annie sort of does both. I think she's very good at supporting, and she's also not bad at carrying depending on the game. K'Sante Nautilus is interesting though. Why is that interesting? Well, Nautilus is a flex pick we've always seen, and it's like going into possibly supportive mid plus carry jungle direction, right? But it's also K'Sante, right? So Nautilus mid and support flex, right? But K'Sante is also like a top lane and mid lane flex, so that is quite interesting. I think K'Sante is very, very strong. I think you can just interlock it, and it doesn't really matter. And Nautilus is not a bad champion when it comes to playing carry jungle, but I have a little bit of mixed feelings. What would I do if I'm JDG? Well, there's a multitude of things you can do. If you want, you can just lock jungle right now, right? Because it's double flex, right? You can't really count it too easily. I personally don't mind ending to Nautilus. I think it's an okay matchup. But I kind of want to secure 80 carry here if I can, right? So I really wouldn't mind going Jinx anyway, to be honest. To just secure myself the broken pick. And then otherwise you're kind of flexible, right? You can go Cannon if you really want to, right? Cannon is still open and a very powerful champion, and then just go into AD plus hopefully counter pick support, or just like any sort of front or back support later, right? That is the direction you can go for. You can decide to drop jungle and just go like Jinx. I mean, you can just go Jinx Cannon, you could do Jinx Wukong. I personally always lock Jinx. You could technically also drop 80 carry, but I think 80 carry is broken. And if they go Jinx here, and their banner like a Feli is X, right, then I think you're not in as good as a position when it comes to hyper carry bot. Right, so I'd always lock Jinx. And then for me, it's like Wukong if you really want it, and it's Kanavi, right? Kanavi is very good when it comes to playing this champion. But I'd always lock Jinx. Always, always, always. Good. Good. So you decide to lock yourself strong with jungle in any Wukong, and then Jinx. Now if you T1, you kind of match 80 carry here and look for carry jungle on 4. Keep K'Sante Nautilus flex up as much as you can, but you should lock 80 carry, otherwise it gets pinched out. So we're just gonna see a Felice here because it's T1. I think a Felice is fine, especially because you already see any Wukong, so that is not that high range. Usually I very much prefer the Jinx side of the matchup though. I very much prefer the Jinx side of that matchup. There's the Aphelios, and we also see it's like 18 to 19, right? So even if you, like, it doesn't even seem to perform that well. And when it comes to Jinx, are we gonna see the stats? What is the stats on Jinx? Oh, 17 to 16. It's actually not that much better. But I really believe Jinx is OP. I think Jinx is so mega broken. I really like outranging. I really like outranging. You have to do so much good on Aphelios to actually stack your chakrams and then play green and white. Whereas if you just got Jinx, you just have it way easier. Although of course you could argue, well, if you play Aphelios as well, right? You're still gonna be fine. And I agree with that, right? But you actually have to make sure that the Aphelios play is really good. Jinx are picked by Western teams, so win rate is bad. I mean, Aphelios also got picked a little bit by Western teams. And if you're not an insane Aphelios player, Aphelios kind of sucks. Sadly. Grand then, okay, so already preparing K'Sante to go top lane. Rumbleban is interesting. Oh, true, T1 played Rumble, right? They played a round of Rumble jungle. As far as I've seen, which is interesting. Banning out the AP jungle to make it so that it's easy. Of course, playing Nautilus with AP jungle is usually better. Rumble flex, yeah, I'm not sure if it's Rumble flex. I think they just slam it onto mid. But it's technically, they just slam it into jungle, but it's technically a flex, yeah. I think Malphite's good. Malphite is a P champion as well. I'm just wondering if it's gonna be like Nidalee ban. You could still do like Kragus Nidalee Elise. Okay, so I decide, okay, well at this point, AB jungle so far open, we're just going to decide to ban Lulu. I think it's okay. Although one thing like I'm like very confused by, right, is of course Renata is not really the best lane into Lulu, right? I agree. I understand that, right? But let's say they go Feli's Lulu. Well, number one, right? People forgot about the OG EU counter of Soraka into Lulu, right? So when it was Sivir meta, we always saw Lulu priority, right? So Yumi was always permabanned, right? Yumi was always permabanned because F that champion. But afterwards we saw basically a Sivir handshake, and the Lulu side always won, right? So we saw Lulu early pick into handshaking Sivir or Zeri, right? And this kind of changed when Rogue just said, well, fuck it, we go Soraka. And the Soraka side was honestly very powerful. I'd rather give Lulu. Why would I rather give Lulu? Well, I'd rather give Lulu because I'm outranging. So if they're hyper carrying Aphelios and I hyper carry my Jinx better, well, I'm still gonna win. I'm still going to win. So I don't really care. Plus, if it's T1, right, and they decide, okay, we've got Aphelios, we're getting outranged, we need to pick Engage. Even though Renata is not the best lane into Lulu, Renata is still an insanely powerful champion. Right, you're still gonna engage into Renata, right, which is very, very easy to play for Renata. And it turns out, if you play Aphelios as well, and he gets ulted, when he is chakrams, he one-shots his entire team. If he's chakrams and he gets ulted on white weapon, he one-shots his entire team. Which should never happen, but it's still kind of funny. Also, one of the weaknesses of Jinx is of course getting one-shot. Making sure she has Renata, which is of course extra peel, but also has the bailout, I think is very powerful, right? So I think that is very, very underrated, personally. I mean, it's going to be jungle now. So AP jungle is still open. I wouldn't... I don't like Nidalee here. I'd like Kindred. I think Kindred is actually good if you can play her. Right? I've seen T1 actually pick Kindred here. Was that the game where he invades and he just gets completely outplayed by Kanavi? I don't remember. But the idea of Kindred here is good. Why is it good? Well, because getting outranged doesn't matter as much anymore if you're standing outside of Kindred ult. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're outranging Aphelios. If there's a Kindred and she's ulting, well, Aphelios can now still hit, and you're out of Kindred ult, you either like back off, or you have to go in. And then it doesn't really matter if you have a range advantage. What I would do now here, though, is I would pick Gragus and probably Braum anyway. So Gragas, I think, is just a very powerful champion anyway. I think this champion is one of the best champions in the game, and I'm very confused that it doesn't get flexed. Because why? He's very versatile, right? He can both in draft, right? So you can basically pick him in 4 lanes. At the very least in 3 lanes, right? But with a lot of Nautilus and Leona picks right now bot lane, Gragas could easily play support. And he's very versatile when it comes to playing the game, right? Gragas does a multitude of things. And he works very well again with hyper carries, right? He has a lot of peel. He has a lot of setup, which hyper carries sometimes lack, especially if you play Enchanter. And he's also very good against hyper carries because they're usually immobile, so the Gragas ult is not a lot of fun. So I really like Gragas, plus of like in general, right? And against Kindred, you can ult people out of Kindred ult, right? So that is very, very powerful. That is very, very powerful. And the Braum, I don't necessarily mind. Why? Because if you're gonna go Enchanter here, it's not usually as good. To be fair though, when you've got Kindred, it changes. Right? So usually I'd reckon Braum blind pick here is fine, or is even good. Because, well, if they're gonna counter pick you with an Enchanter to dominate you in lane, they lose out on engage. Right? And you're still outranging, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Because, again, right, you're gonna hyper carry your Aphelios. If he gets outraged, doesn't really matter that much. With Kindred, it kind of changes though, right? Because, like I already said, right, Kindred ult, they can send outside of Kindred ult. Well, that kind of sucks for them, right? So they have to move in. Not as good. Although Gragas is really powerful when it comes to setting up these sort of things. Main thing like I'm wondering though is when I've got Kindred, I'd kind of play Enchanter, honestly. I would definitely play Enchanter bot lane. Main thing I'm looking for is Soraka. I think Soraka is very powerful with double frontline. I think Soraka is really powerful with Kindred. You could do Sona, but no one plays this champion. It's very, very slow. Although we've seen Sona into Nami a bit, but the champion is quite slow. Unless you're playing on live, because on live Sona is of course one of the most broken champions in the game. Because this Echoes of Philia item, or whatever it's called, is complete broken. I don't know what they're doing, but Echoes of Philia is legitimately complete broken. Insanely broken item. I don't know what your guys' take is on it, but I played like one game of Sona, and I felt I healed like, in the first fight I had it, I healed like 500. This item is not balanced in the slightest way. Wait, where's my stream thing again? Here it is. But I'm probably just pick Enchanter. It is in the right spot, really broken. I think Echoes of Philia is broken in any spot in solo queue. The game is slower. Just pick Enchanter with Echoes of Philia. I think you're in the same position. And there's a multitude of enchanters you can pick. Fresh is like sort of the middle way, right? Fresh enables you to go for a little bit of push. It has like a little bit of setup, and it is Keria fresh, right? So I understand picking it, but it's also not as good against Braum, right? And I know some people don't really like Enchanter against Braum, and I'd argue why? Because I feel like Enchanters against Braum is not that bad. Or of course you could pick Mages into Braum, right? That would technically be the best. So playing Zyra against Braum is one of the most fun lanes you could ever play. It gets absolutely demolished. What is very interesting though is that of course both teams are very much about enabling midsection, right? So we basically play enable versus enable. We play enable versus enable. Hi Licorice. Licorice was in the crowd. So how do we play enable v enable? I know I haven't explained the concept today just yet, right? But basically for me there's like two major ways of playing midsection, and one is where you actively want to enable your mid laner, usually when you actually need him to win plays on the map, or in case you need to accelerate the game, right? Whereas isolating usually is the outscaling way, where you usually get pushed on your own, usually control mages, or the main goal is to just make sure that mid lane is isolated, so 1 versus 1 matchup, because they usually win on their own, right? Very, very quick explanation. This game, I feel like it's enable v enable, right? Where Wukong really wants to heavily play with any, and Kindred is of course relying on Nautilus getting priority to play around the map and possibly get herself the marks that she needs. Who would I give the draft to? I think red side draft can be very, very powerful. But I think blue side draft is just very, very easy to play when it comes to these skirmishes. And I really do believe that if blue side draft ever gets going, I think it's impossible to get back into the game. Right, so T1 has decent engage options in Nautilus and partially the Thresh, right? But it's not nearly enough against all of the peel and front back that JDG has. Right, so if JDG ever gets ahead and they get onto the objective first, I think getting onto the objective afterwards, unless either Kindred or Felix is very, very fed, is very, very hard. What would I do? As T1, well, we kind of have to get ahead a little bit in the early game. And the main way is probably through mid, right? So mid lane is quite vulnerable. So mainly try to win midsection. Of course you can try to invade. But I think this is the game where Kanavi outplays Oner a little bit, right? So T1 starts with the water enemy raptors. Either way, when we play enable, right, we kind of want to see what our early game plan is. If we want to invade, of course, we need to know where enemy jungle is. But either way, when we play enable, we really want to track enemy jungle. Or when we play against enable, right, we really want to track the enemy jungle to know where they are. Because if we know where they are, we know if they can impact midsection or not. Or of course, wards around mid lane can be very, very powerful as well. When we play enable v enable, we usually see people matching mid lane either way, right? So both junglers kind of want to gank mid. So we're just going to see that being matched. So yeah. Oh yeah, okay, this was the game. Okay, I actually saw that. With Oner trying to invade here. So about the matchup, Kindred against Wukong, it's very interesting, right? And it's very much about hitting E as far as I remember. Right? So this is a little bit of a mind game. Where you want to E decently early, but you have to make sure you don't E the clone, right? plus ease and execute, so you want to use it a little bit more towards the end. So it's very much about the W usage of Wukong. That is very much deciding on if you win it or not. So here that just feels very, very bad. It's just insanely well played by Kanavi. It is just insanely well played by Kanavi. It's a nice try by Oner, but it's insanely well played by Kanavi. I don't necessarily mind this invite here, because it can work out quite well. But if we look at the rest of the game, right, the question is always, how do we get ahead, right? And there's one big advantage that makes playing midsection, at least on this patch, a lot easier. And that is, at least on, like this is like 30.8, right, or 30.9. Which at this patch still makes it a lot easier, and that is bot lane priority, right? So that changes to 13.10, with the bot lane waves being bot lane earlier, right? But previously, what you were able to do is, if you had push in bot lane, you could use that push to set up midsection, right? So the 9 enemy vision, which makes it harder for Annie to play, because now she needs to respect the gank a lot more. And of course, tracking enemy jungle. And with that, you can also still always fall back on the dragon, right? Which should facilitate you playing objectives a lot more. And you do have that this game is 2-1, right? So here I think it is partially a bit unlucky, and I understand why he does it, because if he gets his first marquee already, gets possibly second marquee, Kindred is already insanely snowballed, right? Insanely snowballed. But you do have bot lane push. So just playing up a bot lane push wouldn't be too bad, right? You could just look for full clear, hopefully win the flip. Maybe you can already use bot lane to like crash on 3, move towards mid, and then very much hard over mid with your support priority to try to make sure you win the flip either way, right? Because you should be able to get to a herald, to the marked scuttle either way. So I'm not necessarily the biggest fan, because I feel like now it's actually flip, whereas previously a fairly Fresh should get priority either way. Fresh should be able to get unlocked towards mid, mid should be able to push in, and then you should be able to get your mark either way. Which I think is more realistic. It looks like Kindred still won the mark though. Yeah. Kindred still got the first mark, and that is usually the most important. Why is it the most important to get the first mark? Well, because if you're on 0 marks, the only camper can spawn on the Scuttle Crab, which doesn't happen as often, and it's a bit harder to get. Tristana gets pushed in top. We see the classic of reset the enemy jungle with ward. Anything I'm looking forward to is how we're gonna play Drake here. Because bot lane should still be able to get pushed. We've got blue weapon here. I'm wondering if Kanavi is trying to set up JDG to reset here, but they can't really, right? So T1 should still be in a position where they can push out the wave. And main thing I'm looking forward to is, of course, how we set up the Drake. It is Mountain Dragon. Mountain Dragon is very, very powerful, already on its own. And getting the Dragon snowballing is also very, very powerful in case you actually might get outscaled. Which I don't think you necessarily do. I think super late game you're not in that bad of a spot because you've got Kindred. But so is JDG, right? JDG Straff is not bad scaling. What T1 does here is very interesting though, right? So what T1, like this is a bit of a fairly specific thing. Or overall of like a specific thing for champions that are very, very good to at one-shotting a wave. But Aphelios is one of the few champions that can completely one-shot a wave already very early on. So making sure you fake your reset into one-shotting the wave afterwards gets you way better base. Especially like the 530 cannon wave. Because you're a champion that can easily one-shot the waves. Now you're able to even an eye cannon, which is a very big amount of gold and experience. Although it does seem like they got the experience at least. And you get a better base, and in that case it is boots. Plus you're also faster through your cull, which can also be an advantage when it comes to possibly getting your spike a little bit earlier. And getting the first spike on 80 carry can be very, very good, because this enables you to possibly have an easier second dragon fight. Although in my opinion you should already be trying to play for this herald. You should already try to play for this herald. The Thresh has a bit of a delayed roam timer here as well. Prom instantly went back towards bot. Because it turns out Ofeli's one shot's a wave, right? So you kind of want to be in bot lane here to possibly get a little bit of experience as well. Although you could roam towards mid lane here. You could. Get his Jinx. Ofeli has to respect one-shotting. He instantly goes bot. Although, of course, I wouldn't mind him opening towards Skettle, but here it doesn't really matter because you have control already anyway. Does Kanavi skip Gromp? He doesn't. Because you're most likely going to end up playing on bot lane here as Kindred, I think it is a mistake to take Scuttlecrab right now. Why is it a mistake to take Scuttlecrab right now? Well, quite easy, because you already took your topside camps earlier, right? Cromp is marked, and after Cromp is down, which camp is going to get marked afterwards, right? So, Raptors aren't up. Oh, the only camp that can get marked is Scuttlecrab, right? I'm wondering if he waits for the mark to spawn, but he doesn't. Right, so I think this is a very big mistake by Oner. Why? Because they should never be able to get this mark. You're first to mid, you can say a mid section again, shift into bot, make sure your bot lane is in control again, so you can wait. It's very hard for JDG right now to actually get control. It's very hard for them to actually get control. Right, and while you could argue that taking Dragon might be a bit greedy because JDG's skirmishing power is quite high with any, which I think you probably still can, right? But if you don't want to take the risk, I think it's fine. But you should still be able to get control either way. And if you're still able to get control either way, please just take your Cromp and then afterwards take Scuttle, because the marker is going to despawn in like 10 seconds. Look, now it's going to despawn, and then afterwards, like soon after, it's going to actually spawn on the Scuttle. So if you play onto mid lane here, and then move towards Scuttle after Gromp, the mark would have just already spawned on Scuttlecrab. And then you're on your second mark. Losing these marks, especially before the fourth mark, is disastrous as Kindred. It's absolutely disastrous as Kindred. So I think that is a very big display by Oner. I honestly think it's a very, very big mistake. The Jinx is getting to the spot where she can just complete bomb the wave, and if Felix doesn't have blue, you can't really contest, right? And this should just result in JDG possibly already getting this dragon, which sucks because getting this dragon against JDG would have been very, very nice, because they're very bursty composition. I'm not sure if I like Knight one-shotting. Wait, when did he ult? When did Knight ult? Huh? Oh, did he just ult for gold? Does he have ult again at Herald then? Because I'm afraid he might not. Are they just gonna give Herald? Can you not contest Herald here? Because he went for this dragon? Because the way I'd look at it originally is, of course, red side composition skirmish is good. But you've got Wukong, you've got Annie. You possibly have Rom. Do you not think you can contest Herald here? Do you think that due to bot then having the bounce here, if they really wanted to, that they will be able to get the Herald here anyway? Because it looks like JDG is already giving up Herald the way they play here. So I'm wondering why they do it. Does JDG not think they're in a position to fight? Because I think they'd be in a position. You've got Annie, you've got Wukong. Are you not in a position to fight Herald? Because when it comes to prioritizing Herald, I'd rather have Herald. Or actually Mountain? I'm not sure. Actually, Mountain is very, very good. Mountain is a very good dragon. T1 is still going to full swap here. That is a little bit late though. Or not late necessarily. It's a bit awkward. Like, it's a bit unusual for T1, because usually they do it after they already have Herald to threaten the cross map and just bomb the turret. But actually interesting, they go for it anyway, which I don't even think is necessarily that bad, because look how hard they one-shot the turret. Which also got nerfed in 13.10, so I'm wondering if on 13.10 it's actually still good to full swap. But just one-shotting a turret is a huge amount of gold, right? So let's see before the play here. Before Herald play, T1 is actually behind 300 gold. And after the Herald play, they're up a K. And of course Jinx like also getting another plate here, right? So that's actually like not entirely 1000 gold. I know it is. So they basically got 1.3k gold off this play. Which in the early game is of course very, very big. Very, very big in the early game. A Jinx does hit a mythic though. But you also didn't go boots.
In favor of T1, it was a big investment. JDG keeping him down there, making sure he could deny a bit of gold and pick some up for himself. So as you can see, still not anything over like a 500 gold lead or something like that.
Yeah, not massive by any means. The ruler is basically tied with Gumayusi, in the individual gold because he actually got solo gold on the plates where it was split up on that top side. So yeah, T1 did get more team gold.
I'm just wondering, is there like any way for JDG to get the hero? But it seems like there's not afterwards. Maybe they want to fight anyway. I'm not sure why. It's Kindred, but you have a lot of options to get people out of Kindred over with Gragas. Not that bad. As long as you best Kindred, you can also keep your Wukong W up for after the ult ended to disengage. I don't think this damage matchup topside should be bad. Getting Mountain is also not that bad. But T1 just continues to get so much out of these hero plays. But afterwards, like, you're already like down again. What happened? Like here you're like entire like 1000 up. I guess top wave wasn't farmed yet. Yeah, but it's still like 1k here. What actually happened for you to drop all this advantage again?
Tracking that particularly because JDG in short range now does break out. Neither mid laner really has been too involved thus far. Nope, it's just been pressing his titters button whenever it is off cooldown. I absolutely love it. Make sure that you're just playing two champions at once for as much of the game as you can.
What happened? Okay, now, okay, the goal, I mean, the goal thing up top is just really fucking buggy, isn't it? Of course, it was a little bit delayed by people not taking waves, but a bit weird. Anyway, so what is the next play, right? So Oner at least gets his second mark minute. Getting his second mark minute like 10:30 is really rough, man. Because he should have already had it. He should have already had it for such a long time. Should be a third, and then maybe getting one kill into getting your 4 marks is it's just way better. And of course, the 4 mark spike on Kindred is very big because that is the spot where she gets 75 range. So on the 4th mark and every 3 marks after, she gets extra range. Every 3 marks after, it's extra 25, but the 4th mark is 75 extra range, and that is very, very big, especially against an outranging hyper carry. So getting the race up is so important, and he's not performing very well at getting these marks, sadly. JDG uses the roam timing to set up mid. Knight probably wants to go for base. He doesn't have boots, so he might have his mythic here already. I'll be close to it at least. Nah, actually. Maybe not, maybe not. Maybe, nah, probably doesn't. That is a nice shot by T1, but they actually misplayed, I think. They don't get him. And he's marked as well, isn't he? Ah! Is Wukong marked? And at least if you've got the top 10 mark that you play for here, so that's not too bad, right? So the reason why T1 goes for this play is because next mark is going to be on Grump. Raptors down, Grump respawning. No mark up, right? It's gonna be that camp. 36-9 surviving though, and Oner using his flash and still not getting him is a bit rough. But at least you get the marks on the 3rd mark now, which is really important. And both teams are sort of in a good position right now. Next Dragon is Camtech, up at 40 seconds. Zeus pushes in another wave, so now he can reset and open towards mid. So mid section control should be very favorable for T1 due to having mid lane roam, your top laner already being on mid. Although it seems like, okay, wait, never mind, Zeus is going to go bot side because Baker's just going to be on mid, which I guess it's fine. But you really have to make sure you either get your flank right now as Zeus or on mid lane as well. Because JDG should not be allowed to get control of the objective first. If JDG gets control of the objective, it's very unfavorable for you. So I'm wondering when it comes to this spot here, right? So you get a wave in bot lane, so that's why you TP, right? You get a wave, and you stop Jinx and pushing here. What I'm just wondering is if it's still not just better for Oner, for Zeus to just go mid lane. Because if I look at this fight, right, and if I really want to get this dragon, the #1 thing important for me right now is like push on this mid lane wave. Because both compositions are very much favored in the fight, in my opinion, if they're first on the objective. Both comes on the front and back hit. Both comes on the zone control. Right? Both combos are really good when it comes to shredding. I'm not as good at running in. Although kind of JDG is like not that bad at running in, I think. But it's still not really what they want to do. Don't really have that good engage options. Unless you have like Gragas ult, right? But you want to keep your Gragas up for Kindred. Get people out of her ult. So for me, JDG getting control here feels very bad. So I'm wondering if there's any way. Plus, Gumayusi's weapons are, of course, not that good yet either. Right, you really need to burn through purple, in my opinion. He's burning through blue when he should have burned through purple. So I'm already wondering, is there a way for Gumayusi actually just burn through purple? Because playing blue-red is not that bad. Blue-red is not that bad. I'm wondering why he's still on purple anyway. Is purple good in these fights here? Because I reckon it's not. XCC is really not the thing you care about that much. Playing blue-purple kind of sucks as well. I'm not sure why Guma usually like plays like this. I guess maybe to have green-blue later. I guess the idea is... I know his idea, right? I guess he wants to play red, white, green, and then you've got the like blue again, right? So you play green, blue. Okay, yeah, I understand. Okay, yeah, that's the easier way to play, I guess. So they don't actually play blue-red because they want green-blue later. Which is like an Eastern thing, right? Mixed feelings, but I understand why he does it now. Yeah, think about it, I understand why he does it. And this is just 1v9, like, night moment. I mean, is it bad for T1 to, like, face check it? Yes, it is. It's just an insane threshold? Yes, it also is. But that is why Annie's so powerful. That is why Annie's so powerful. Because you've got so much burst, you've got so much CC. Fighting with Annie is just so easy. Fighting with Annie is just so easy. You just need to pull the trigger. And that is just JDG's Dragon. So previously it was like very much about like teams were just very, very even, but JDG's team fighting is very, very good. Knight just knows what he needs to do, just flash ults instantly the second his spot hits two people. Which is very good because that way of course Kindred can't get it all through and Faker also can use his abilities. Oh wait, actually it's not even Faker that got hit. But Faker didn't have ult, did he? Oh, he did. Yeah, Knight is smiling. Yeah, I'd also smile after hitting that flash ult. Huge. Oner even has mercs and he still got a mega one-shot. But Brawl mode follow-up is also very, very nutty. I feel like T1 just needs to play like a little bit safer there, but it's kind of fine. Doesn't really matter. X-Herald is up. You don't have flash ult on Knight. You still don't have Brawl mode, I think. Wait, I see. Maybe he does? I don't know. If it's coming up right now. How to see? Ah, it's coming up right now. Okay. But this should be T1's fight, right? So that's also why we see Kanavi just reset. You don't have ult right now. You're just gonna give it. And what is just very interesting for me is usually when we watch LPL teams, they don't actually prioritize Drakes that much from the games I've seen. But JDG, it seems like they do. Which for me is very interesting. Because if you watch Eastern teams, most of them prioritize Herald to snowball their gold. To be in a better position to fight dragons later with better spikes. But already at the first dragon, they seem to prioritize it, which for Mountain makes a lot of sense, right? And of course, with second dragon, it's of course even more favored, because the second herald doesn't really allow you to get platings. The mid lane turret is still like very healthy, right? So giving this herald is not that big of a problem either. But still interesting to see that high dragon prioritization, and let's see if it continues to be the same for the rest of the series. Both teams are still like sort of even, but the front and back JDG had like this is never how you play. Like Faker hooking here is like so garbage by the way. Everyone is in fog. There's no you don't win front and back fights by engaging, right? That is what I meant, right? It's very important for both teams to be on dragon first. But if you're behind, it's very hard to do it. So losing the fight earlier is very, very bad for T1. Plus, like if you look at this playing onto dragon being the first, right? There's two important things for it, right? And that is number one. And well, there's three important things, right? How's your front and back fight? Because if you no matter who decides to engage, right, it's like sort of a front and back fight. Number two, who is better push? And that is like either like does Gumayusi have blue? Which is hard for him because the way he cycles, he doesn't play blue red. He plays purple red, right? He plays purple red into red white into green into blue. He play green blue later, which for me is a little bit weird because usually I mean against engaging craft it sort of makes sense in a way, right? It sort of makes sense in a way because That way, you enable yourself to play green-blue, which is better against engaging drafts, right? And in a way, it makes sense. But
Then the rest of T1 isn't able
still a bit rough.
I think part of the difficulty is the follow-up.
Because that way,
The backline
because originally you could play blue-red, right? You banned for purple earlier. And then you can use blue to possibly still get a bit of push, and then get out of blue to be on red after. And then you've got red-white, hopefully, right? Hopefully at this point it's still like 20 to 20. Weapon only on red. You ban that either on their front line, if they engage onto you, to stack your chakrams, right? So you always try to play red-white at the same time to stack chakrams. No matter what you do.
line, Baker can go forward,
And from then, or like on objective, right? And then play green-white after. To snipe people with like chakrams. And to have like high range, right?
try to look for a hook.
It's usually what you end up doing.
9 missing all
And I understand the idea of having green-blue, but this also just means that you don't have blue to actually get yourself a bit of wave control. Especially against Jinx. And I think that's like a bit of like part of the problem. I'm sorry.
real challenge. So I do think there's going to be a lot of pressure on Zeus to be able to find an angle to follow up on what Baker is doing.
And that is also why I prefer Jinx side, right? Jinx has such an easy time.
Numbers don't really
Plus, the third point, of course, when it comes to setting up mid is side lane control, right? So having better side lanes means you can push out, get man advantage on mid. But it's kind of fan shaking on like both sides. And you can just take the wave pretty safely.
things like that. Whereas JDG, you press your R buttons together, tip the Gregus, and then you're feeling absolutely fantastic.
And T1 is also not that strong at overloading and catching people on side, right? So it doesn't really matter.
Where everyone on T1 is, if you can't,
And it's all about getting this control of mid.
it becomes really hard, as we see, because the blow-up potential of the 100 CC chain for JDG.
But Ruler's playing so insane, man. Ruler's playing so insane.
if Ruler is the die, it's going to be
I really think like Ruler's the best AD carry right now in the game. Ruler is so nutty, man. He's so nutty right now.
go IE straight off that. Then they'll finish the item later.
Well, a bit of engagement here, is Kanavi's just gonna get out there, presses his warrior tricks button, he's gonna get
Kanavi gets out. But it's all about getting mid lane push, right? So T1 right now is already like going for it, but this is so awkward. This is so awkward. Like this is relying on getting a catch, right? So I understand if there's a wave right now, why T1 might insta go, right? Because if there's a wave right now and the insta push mid, you can use this push to set up already and then try to get a side lane and shove it out, right? But the way T1 does it right now, I'm not a fan. Because you're going mid without there being a wave, the control you get right now is really irrelevant. Because you're not going to be able to keep it. Because you're not fixing side lane right now. And you can't use this mid lane push to fix side lane either. Because there's no wave, right? So you can't push it out. And then try to make sure you get control of side lane afterwards. Especially because it's only 40 seconds until Dragon. So JDG is pushing outside, and after they push outside, but they're just kind of run into mid. And if it's even man in mid lane, it is JDG that gets control of the objective.
as we've seen prior. What's crucial is Ivan collecting again. Impact the last
Also, Faker going Abyssal Mask without AP Jungler is the biggest creep ever. It's so shit. It straight up is incredibly garbage. And maybe I understand the idea of not going Even Shroud first, but you can always go Sunfire into Even Shroud. That's not that bad. That's really not that bad. Especially because JDG is quite engaging, right? And this is basically what I meant, right? You push outside, well now you have to answer it, when you should have already been on side and possibly, right? And now you're just gonna be late here. And now T1 is just gonna get shoved in.
be able to get to safety. But not a whole lot invested outside of that.
Kanavi uses ultimate, but it doesn't matter.
Onto missing.
Woo, and Knight does it again!
Gumayusi this time. They're not gonna be able to get any kills.
Yeah, Gumayusi's chunked, whatever.
Guma loses his cleanse and he's down about
I mean, he has red, so he can try to regen.
buy enough time. You're dropping Herald mid, trying to buy time for Guma to heal up.
But it's not that much.
Trying to get this dragon.
It's not that much. Oh, I hate TPing on Shelly.
One altogether. Faker going to turn up with a full health bar. Joe can buy themselves.
Well, Herald does give you extra bit of push. Right? Herald does give you a bit of extra push.
JDG just holding
And you kind of need to respect it then.
Missing's door is still there, though. It's like you didn't get CC. Everyone pecking
Okay, that is actually quite interesting.
You're dropping Herald mid, trying to buy time for Guma to heal up.
I forgot about the Herald.
Interested in trying to get
So let's look at that in 1 time speed and actually think a bit more about it. Because the way I look at it, this bot is a nice chunk on Gumayusi, but you lost any ult. That's Kanavi evolved again. Didn't he just use it?
started off. This time around, T1 can't get caught off.
Yeah, he just used it. Why does it say that Kanavi still has ult? Man, this like this spectate. I mean, this UI is really garbage. This UI is so incredibly garbage.
Gumayusi this time.
Huh?
Connector onto missing, and there's another. Flash tip is right on top of Gumayusi.
Huh?
Is going to connect.
Wait, that's Bromq. Never mind.
Flash tip is right on
Okay, that's Bromq. I thought for a second that was a Jinx ult.
time. They're not going to be able to get any kills, but T1 have to back all the way off.
Exactly. Guma loses his cleanse and he's down to about
Okay, trying to chunk him even more, possibly even getting the kill. You're gonna be, you're gonna try to be there instantly as well.
Yeah, and they're going to teleport on top of surely here as well to get themselves back into this one altogether. Faker going to turn up with a full health bar.
And because you've got Heralds here, you can try to contest in midsection. So that is not that bad, but you won. Gumayusi is trying to get as much damage in as possible, but Ruler is in a pretty decent position in this fight as well. And you can't really actually go into Dragon right now. You need to play this mid lane wave. Because if you get on Herald, if you get on Dragon right now, JDG is just going to one-shot this wave. Right, so when it comes to this sort of mid lane wave, is T1 still favored? And I guess they are, to be honest. I guess this is just T1's Drake if they really want it. No. I think Keria looks insane. Huh? Okay, it's like... No, Faker's griefing. No, Faker's griefing. Gragas has TP. Gragas has TP. Wait, Faker just griefed. One thing I'm really weirded out a bit is T1's and Genji's priority in Dragon. Because the way I look at it, getting this mid lane turret is nice, right? Sure. But just fall back. Like, why are you hooking? You just fall back and then you play Dragon. They're all still chunked as well. They don't have ultimates. Someone is on top. You probably don't have vision behind you. You kept their control, right? So they don't really have a flank TP unless someone TPs like on bot lane. Although, of course, JDG, like 369 could possibly TP on bot lane and then get a flank, right? Which is not really the best. And I guess Gumayusi doesn't have like mana either. So maybe you don't want to give it. Give Dragon, but if you go to the third Dragon, it's also rough, man. I just don't understand why Faker would ever hook there. Maybe the idea is possibly we can get something, otherwise we just get out. One kill on Faker doesn't really matter, but I'm still not a fan. Huh? Do you think they might be on Nashi? Well, T1 did try to flip a lot of Nashes previously, right? I know Keria called a lot for it. I mean, I guess Faker dying here doesn't really matter. Because T1 should never be in a position to go for Dragon here anyway, because Oner and Gumayusi is dead. So I guess if you want to fake a call, you could argue that the only way they get this Dragon is if they catch someone right now, so might as well try. But I still don't understand it. I don't think it's horrible that he dies here. I don't think it matters, to be honest. But yeah. I don't think it matters that Faker dies there. So I think you could argue in both directions, but yeah, whatever. That Dragon going for JDG, I know it's only Ocean Soul, but it's still not that bad. But it still feels pretty good, especially because T1 is the most consistent damage out that much burst, so Ocean Soul can be quite powerful. Again though, right? JDG's first to side lane. The T1 is very heavily positioning onto Nash, and they don't have teleports on side lanes. Right? So they can't easily go into that because otherwise they might threaten mid push into that, and then it could try to possibly force it, although flipping is not necessarily always the best, especially against Kindred ult. But still not necessarily the best, and it's JDG instantly pushing side, making someone answer, and then next mid lane wave is yours again, so you can use that to set up. And if Gisante is bot without teleport, well now you can run down mid, just get a turret. Right? Which is very, very good if you play against on the back compositions. You're quite good at running down, so making sure you get enemy T1 is very powerful. And you're looking for a base here, so T1 is in position to get push here first. Can look to play onto Nash. You're trying to go for catching on silent, that's actually quite interesting. JDG is very hard respecting T1's 5v5 right now in mid. By the way, originally I'd say that if it's a 5v5, I thought JDG would win it. But I guess you don't necessarily, right? T1 from the back, especially if it's like a very clear from the back, it's not that bad here. Not that bad. But I still wouldn't think it's that bad for JDG. Yeah. Maybe... Yeah, maybe JDG was wrong. Because maybe I was right. Because looking at the 5v5 fail, like it doesn't look favored for T1. That's what it did one time speed. But it doesn't look favored for T1.
I'm glad to see that Ruler's still the same. That's the Ruler spot right there. Only has to give up his flash. have seen him get caught in situations like that many a time as the hook.
Yeah, going to connect. That is going to be a second.
Him get caught.
Playing a Felix against Annie is the most cancer thing ever, isn't it?
That is going to be a second.
Annie just ults and you're like half HP, nice, and you get a Mega Zone out of the fight.
Played back. Not a whole lot of damage though, but
Interesting as always though.
going to be a second.
I feel like Ruler, and like if we look at the EU Crown, he does it. They're always playing at an angle, right? So they're never playing this like behind the carries. They always play like 45-degree angle, always,
Back. Not a whole lot of damage though, but
allowing you to like hit, but like to also get protected, but not to really be behind your carries, behind your front line directly.
barely onto the end, but now it's
Finds the resets here and just gonna burn them down. Have to be a bit careful you don't go too deep into Gumayusi, but Gumayusi is a bit greedy, trying to find like one kill. And now you can maybe run them down here directly.
advantage in this fight is the Zeus
Ah,
just
no,
barely.
didn't find Keria, but still very, very big.
Blind ruler, so he was able to just continue to do damage.
Or you also find, oh, never mind. Okay, never mind, it's under bullshit. Okay, whatever.
There it is. Here's the advantage. Oh, never mind. And he'll take the land to safety.
But yeah, that's what I meant, right? Like, that's why I felt like JDG should have just been in mid. Because I feel like even men they get man advantage. Even men they don't get man, even men they win, right? I don't know if this is like mistake by T1, but I feel like Gumayusi just gets a Mega Zone out simply but with any ult.
Flashes over the ball, but look at what Zeus attempts to do, right? The attempted re-engage, the sidestep from ruler there. If he gets picked up and Guma's on top of him, that's a
Like, making this come from even or behind, JDG is really favored, aren't they?
Picking up where they left off against BLG, their team fighting has been so on point. They're a tough nut to crack, and it is going to be 40 seconds until a potential Ocean Soul here.
And JDG are really favored. I really like Voids coming in second by Knight already. Look at the MR stack.
How are you going to be able to kill them when they get Ocean Soul?
Not entirely sure. We'll see whether
Karia's just going full tank, pushing outside. Again, right? JDG's first aside. JDG's first aside, wait, what happened?
instead. Hook is going to go just a little bit wide here. By Keria in the mid lane. As Knight just throws a bear at him. And that is a really good threat, guys. I don't think there's going to be
Rough.
anything for him. Teleport
That is rough.
forward as well as JDG. 10 seconds on Ocean Soul. Zeus wrapping
I don't even know why
He's just walking towards him. He's gonna land on
Karia's positioning there.
He tries to open it,
I mean, this is just GG.
and Oner is now going to have to hold just
That is a straight up good game. Good game. Does any one of you have any questions already? And then we can look to discuss them. Otherwise, we're just going to see how JDG is going to finish the game because they get matched, right? They're just going to run down now. Finding these plays against JDG at this point is just very rough. I don't like any going for Magi's here. Oh, my hair is so scruffed. I don't like any going for Magi's here due to the fact that you're already winning. I like Magi's in cases where you're very safe or if you're behind. Because it might enable you to get back into the game when you're this far ahead. I don't like it, honestly. Although maybe it was the only mythic, only legendary item you could finish. And it does give you legendary passive. Mythic passive. Nice, Jinx side wins as always. Jinx is broken. Jinx is broken. It doesn't seem like there are any questions in chat, so let's do a quick summary of the game. Let's do a quick summary of the game. I felt like the game was mostly even. As you people know, I really prefer the Jinx side, right? But the game was pretty even. Oner tried to go for an invade here. Very unlucky. But again, as always, I really try to prioritize just playing towards my bot lane, making sure their snowball is more important. And I guess you don't really do anything in bot, but you at least enable you to full clear, enable your bot lane to go for push, and maximize the chance you get the first to mark with Scattercrab. Well, one thing was interesting that JDG actually heavily prioritized getting Drake, getting Mountain Dragon. And I'm wondering if it's because they don't think they win top lane skirmish, or because they think they can't really contest a T1 bot lane of being the first, which is also partly true. Again, like Oner can't play Kindred properly, like his mark acquisition is really weird. Scattle's gonna be the next mark. There's nowhere Kanavi leads up from. You keep control here on bot side. There's no reason for you to go top lane at this point in time. Don't take Scuttlecrab right now, you idiot. Sorry. I think Kindred is very good, but you actually have to play properly for marks, right? So that I'm a bit unhappy about, right? Interesting thing, give Herald, play Dragon. As always, the T1 special of full swapping when you've got the Feliers into complete bombing one turret. Which is very good for your economy, but also allows Jinx to free scale during the time, right? But you probably can anyway, right? So I don't think it's that bad. And I think the big game turner is honestly just Knight's Flash here. That is a nice try. That bait was quite cool. Finding ulting someone over the silent turret. Silent wall. I think it's quite nice. But outside of that, it is mainly about JDG getting control of mid section. And that is partly with T1 just... Like, T1 always just a mega send it onto objective. And it's just an insane flash. And afterwards, JDG is like a little bit stronger. And they just play the dragons better. What can I say? As long as T1 doesn't get ahead, JDG just wins with this draft, in my opinion. Thinking it is good, but you're so late on your marks. Like, it's minute 20, you have 3 marks. Like, how do you play the game? You should 100% be in 4 marks right about now. Yeah, I think that's mostly that there is to this game. How would I adapt for game 2? I think we're just gonna check that in the second draft, right? For the YouTube people, in case you enjoyed this video, this analysis here, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out my Twitch. In case you're interested in coaching, check out my Discord. In case you're an organization still looking for a team, looking for a coach, I'm still looking for a team, right? So hit me up. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video, and then see you guys in the game 2 analysis.